name is Stanback, born and raised in Seattle. Born and raised in Seattle. I ended up playing, I went to college, University of Washington, played pro ball for the Cowboys for some years and got my graduate, my MBA from George Washington, and now I have a business in Coppell, Steadfast Fitness and Performance here. I've been here for the last 4 years. But just to give you guys a little bit of understanding, because there's a lot going on. And I can tell you guys, as an African-American male, I am beyond frustrated. I am beyond tired. And a lot of people are probably saying, this has nothing to do with you. This wasn't your family. This wasn't directly against you. But if you guys understand, just to give you guys a little bit of understanding, I grew up in the hood of Seattle. Seattle had a hood at one point in time, and I was in the midst of it. And so much so where I grew up across the street from the neighborhood trap house, where they did drugs all day long. Half my friends were drug dealers, were gangbangers. Half of the cats that I grew up with were in prison for murder and things of that nature. That's the environment I grew up around. My mom worked 2 jobs. She had a kid at 15, had a kid at 16, and had me at 26. Right? So single parent, growing up in that household, she had to do what she can to make ends meet. I'll be playing video games, drive-by shootings, that was the normal. Sirens, that was the normal. So you grew up with an understanding of where you were, the type of community you lived in, and I saw misuse of power all the time. I got personally profiled all the time. Getting pulled over with tin and windows saying you fit the profile of somebody we're looking for, it's probably not something that's even possible, right? So you grow up kind of seeing things in person, seeing people get mistreated, seeing a misuse of power, and then you start to internalize all those things, right? Because you can't act out on a police officer, right? But they can act out on you. So what you end up doing is you start internalizing those things. It's kind of like a parent you can't really speak on, right? You go in your room, you yell at your pillow, you're mad, but what at the root of it, you really start just building up, right? That pressure starts building, And then all of a sudden, enough things happen in your life or enough things happen to other people that are like you to the point where you blow up. And is there anybody here that can attest to having that in some form or fashion in their life where there's enough tension, enough anger that you blow up at some point in time? Yeah. So you guys can imagine, as an African American, as anybody of cultural descent at all, in your appearance form, right? Just in your appearance alone, being profiled, being treated differently, feeling like as if you have to always do more than everybody else around you. I knew that I had a stigma against myself as an athlete. Athletes get thrown in a category, right? Most of the time, African Americans get portrayed as an athlete or as a rapper or as a criminal. Kind of the 3 categories you get put in. So even as an athlete, even as a professional athlete, you guys are my best friend, I knew that I had to go back and get a graduate degree, get my MBA, just so when I'm finished, nobody could just say, you're just an athlete. But I shouldn't have to feel like I have to do that. That should be something that's just natural that I want to go attain. But that wasn't the only derivative that was causing me to go attain that degree. The bigger factor was because of the profile that I know that was on me as an African-American male. That drove me to go get that degree. So I'll take it. I'll use that as whatever it is, a launch point to make myself better. But the underlying factor was the fact that I had to do it because I had to be better than everybody else around me. And that's not okay. So when we start talking about systemic racism, when we start talking about some of these things that are happening, these things have been happening for a long time. So when you guys hear people saying that they're tired of seeing it. They're tired of it they're tired of it being okay. They're tired of it not being enough ramifications for the actions. This is the reality. This is the reality. If there wasn't social media, majority of the things we've seen as of the last 3 or 4 weeks would not have, the condemnation on those guys would not have taken place. That's the reality. So you guys can think back however many years back ago when there was no social media, where these same things were occurring even more so, and yet people like myself, people in my neighborhood, people, my parents, witnessed these things. My parents had segregated water fountains. It wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago. So let's not fool ourselves to think that we're so far removed from these situations and these issues that it's just okay. And in Coppell, I raised the issue 2 years ago because as a Coppell now resident, my daughter was going to a CISD school, and They don't acknowledge African American History Month. Does anybody not see a problem with that? I see a problem with that. And I raised that issue. I went and talked to the principal face to face because my wife and I had an issue with that. Because by not acknowledging African American History Month, you're deciding to raise a whole new generation of people that only identify African Americans, people that looked at them as athletes, athletes, rappers, or criminals. So there's an issue right here. When we appreciate you guys coming out, appreciate everybody coming out. But there is a major issue even in this community. I've been profiled in this community. I've been profiled at my job and had to go to court and face the police and the district attorney. And I had to hold my own and show that, oh, guess what? He's educated. And it took me embarrassing a DA and a police officer for them to stop profiling me in this city. So yeah, it still goes on. So yes, I still have to deal with those things. Yes, I still have to have conversations with my twins that are 6 years old and my daughter that's 8 years old that plays in Coppell sports. Let me say this. Please don't say you don't see color. Please. Please don't say you don't see color. You need to see color. You need to see color so you can identify their backgrounds. You can identify the things that are culturally important to them. I had an issue last year with a pair of fathers that were having Indian Princess Weekend. And I acknowledge the fact that I'm glad you're doing something with your daughters. I'm glad that you're doing something to empower our young ladies that are growing up, regardless of your cultural descent. Doesn't matter. I'm glad you're doing that because our young ladies need that support. They need that male figure in their life regardless, right? But I had an issue with the fact that they were imposing on another culture without the direction of somebody from that culture. So when you see these things, you have to be able to identify these things. So you have to be able to call people out, and they don't have to accept your point of view. We don't have to agree. We don't have to agree. And I don't always feel like I have to voice my opinion, but on certain times, there's times where people need to know. If you're in conversations where people are having racist type tones or cultural insensitive type tones, right? You need to let them know, because by feeling how you feel, by being here supporting, right? That's one thing. Being outspoken is a whole nother thing. If you don't speak out on things when you guys are in the midst of them, you're just as much of a problem. And I say that wholeheartedly. I'm one that's not concerned about others' perceptions of me. I don't care. I'm a Christian, I'm a father, I'm a husband, and those are the things that matter most to me. Right? So I'm really not concerned about other people's perception of me. I don't care if you don't agree with my opinions. I don't care if you don't agree with my background. I don't care. That's fine. Everybody's entitled to do that. Right? But when I speak, I'm going to respect you. I hope that you respect me. And that's it. Right? So, as we're seeing these things on TV, we're seeing blatant misuse of power. Blatant. Without any, and the reason why it's so blatant because there has been no ramifications.
We gotta hide it.
There's been no justification. So when you see a police officer kneeling on somebody for 9 minutes with a smirk on his face because he's untouchable, why does he feel that way? Why does he feel that way? I have plenty of police officers. I have FBI, I have Secret Service, all these people that I train every day. Have these conversations with them blatantly. I ask them questions. Why do you feel this way? What's going on the back end? What conversations are being held at your job? I want to know. So I have a better understanding so that I don't just have this built-up anger. I need to know your point of view. So I understand. I don't have to agree, but I need to understand what's your perception so that I can mend what's going on inside me. Because I'm angry. I shouldn't feel like I should have to walk around with a weapon everywhere I go. I shouldn't feel like I have to have those conversations with my daughter that says, yeah, I'm sorry, baby girl. This is why those kids at your school said that they can't play with you in 2020. Try talking to an 8-year-old about that. Try talking about what the heck just happened over here in the park the other day where they said, kill niggers. Or the fact that I sat there witness showing up to a basketball court at Andy Brown last year, and a little boy was sitting there under the basketball hoop crying because a group of white boys at that time were talking about him and calling them niggers. Last year. So don't tell me that they just figured that out on their own. Let's not be that silly to think that they just figured that out on their own. There is generational curses that every culture has to break. And if you don't call it out when you see it, it's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to grow, and we're going to face these things year after year. So when you guys see people enraged, understand why. Everybody is not emotionally secure to be able to handle themselves in situations of anger. Everybody has their own issues. Everybody out here has their own issues. And we deal with it differently. Some people are hotheads, some people are really strategic, some people are cool. It doesn't matter. Everybody has different boiling points. So let's not condemn the people that are out there acting out. They don't know what else to do. I can't sit up here and say that's wrong, you shouldn't do that, right? I'm not in agreement with it, but guess what? I can't speak to their emotions. I can't speak to their emotions, just like they can't speak to mine. I never cried in front of my kids in my life, but I posted something the other day, and my daughter looked at me like I was crazy because I broke down crying, but just because of how angry I am. Now people understand why for the last 10 years I've been talking about go get your LTC. Go get your license to carry. Why? If I'm ever in an environment where I need it, I shouldn't be there. That's not the case. That's not the case, because there are people that don't like you because of how you look. Right? We have a huge Indian population here in Coppell, especially. How many people know about their culture? Not enough. Not enough. Right? So look within and recognize there's work that I have to do. Every single one of us have racist tones on the inside of you somehow, some way. And it's your job to identify those weaknesses in you and deal with them or let them flourish. That's every single person out here. So I like to be real right now and just take a poll and say how many people are able to drive down Denton Tap and not have to worry about getting pulled over because of what you look like. Put your hands down. How many people have to worry about it every time you drive down Denton Tap? And that's too many. And that's too many. So there's a problem. Identify it. In this country, I don't care what your political backgrounds are. I don't care if Democrat, Republican, I don't care. There's a problem with people's souls at this point. Regardless of political background, there's too much people getting to whatever left, right, I don't give a doggone what direction people want to say you're in. Deal with yourself. Deal with your community. Deal with those around you so that you guys can address the problem and punch it in the mouth. If you guys have played sports, your coach calls out your weaknesses, right? And you deal with that. You don't want to hear it. You don't want to recognize it. But you have to do what? You got to deal with it. It's no different. We can't categorize these things. You cannot categorize these things. You cannot categorize racism. You cannot categorize your political beliefs. You cannot categorize treating people right. Identify it. If you guys recognize whoever you are, regardless of your background, regardless of your situation, if you recognize that you are what's the term I'm looking for? I can't even think right now. Privileged. If you recognize that you're privileged, identify that. That's not a bad word.
That's straight.
It's not a bad word. Identify it. And reach down and figure out what can I do to help. Nobody has a straight answer. Nobody knows the answer. Only thing I can tell you guys is to be outspoken on things that you guys are passionate about. If you're passionate about being out here, be passionate about punching everybody in their mouth, not physically, okay? Punching somebody in their mouth about their views. Make them uncomfortable. Make them uncomfortable. Don't be okay with it. That's where we have to start. And then get your butt up and freaking vote. Damn straight. So there's a whole lot more. I probably, like I said, I had no intentions of speaking, but I just, more than anything, understand. More than anything, understand. Understand that there's underlying factors, there's underlying groups that are trying to mislead. There's freaking smoke and mirrors, y'all. You think all of a sudden there's a blackout yesterday when there's freaking primaries going on?
Miles of bricks.
Bricks being freaking delivered downtown. Who's organized like that? Don't be silly. Don't be silly. Don't be quick to react with emotion. It's hard. It's freaking hard. But don't be lured into that trap. Don't be lured into that trap. Be in control of yourself. Don't let somebody else control you. All right, so as I said, control yourselves, control your emotions, be strategic, be impactful, have conversations, and be vocal. Don't just hide them behind the curtains. Don't just have them behind the doors. Be vocal, you guys, because if you don't make people uncomfortable, there is no change. All right, appreciate it.